Howdy, everyone from Texas, USA. We're going live and we're continuing the chapter. Sorry about that. And we're continuing from last Thursday on brokerage services and sales contracts. And so this is a national topic. And let me share the screen so that I can continue to show you the book. And for those of you that have purchased the book, I greatly appreciate it. I was beautifully surprised about getting a little bit of commission from YouTube. So thank you so much. Hey, Max, how you doing? So welcome. You're getting ready to take your exam this week, correct? Is it March? I was thinking today. Is it on March 5th? So we continue to use this book, and remember that this book exists in quite a few states. So if you click my link, it'll take you to the Amazon, and then you can click your state. If your state is not available, you can purchase this one and you have access to the national questions because the national questions are all the same. Okay, so Max is taking his exam on Saturday. We wish you the best, Max. Let us know how it goes. And Max is in North Dakota. All right, so let's get with it. I'm editing my channel a little bit and making some changes to provide additional information to after you pass your real estate license and want to start your business, also for buyers and sellers, and information on YouTube. So I'm currently organizing the channel and providing more information, but all dealing with real estate, and then YouTube for real estate, or creating a business, creating additional income from multiple streams of income. So that's coming to you gradually on the channel. Okay, I'm still the same person. I'm going to change it to Lillie Handy Dominguez. And then on the playlist, I will add Agent Prep, National, Texas, and whatever we have been covering for the last few years. So I'm expanding, but still doing the same as far as those that are impacting you. And then for you to continue once you pass your real estate exam. And if you see a little bit of difference on the video after I finish going live, I am editing it and getting rid of a lot of things. Okay, so let's get with it here. So national, right? We're doing national. And also for your information, I'm including in this description the chapter we're discussing, the pages, the questions, the topics. And then I'm adding a comment that I'm pinning so that you know exactly what we're covering. Some students have been mentioning that. All right. So to be enforceable, a contract for the conveyance of real estate must A, be acknowledged by witnesses. B, be written. C, be recorded. Or D, have an expiration date. And I invite you all to participate. Hello, for those of you that are coming in, you can say your name. It says R the Sunshine 890. You can say your name and then participate by typing the question number and the letter answer. Should you miss it, I will help you. Okay, so what is the answer? To be enforceable, a contract for the conveyance of real estate must be A, be acknowledged by witnesses, B, be written, C, be recorded, or D, have an expiration date. What do you think the answer is? the contract for the conveyance of real estate to be enforceable must be in writing, which is 523B as in boy. Now, Max, you mentioned D, have an expiration date. No, all contracts have an expiration date and they have a start date, which is the executed date when it was signed by all parties. But in order to be enforceable, it must be in writing first. Put it in writing and then everybody signs. Okay, so a contract for the sale of real estate is enforceable only if it is in writing. A buyer or seller cannot sue to force the other to comply with an oral contract for sale, even if the contract is valid. Well, there's no proof, right? There's no written proof. So you won't win in court, or they won't win in court. Number 24, a buyer makes an offer to purchase a house and the seller accepts the offer. However, before the salesperson can inform the buyer of the seller's decision, the buyer delivers a written notice that she is opting out and canceling the agreement. At this point, which of the following is true? A, the contract has been legitimately canceled and null and void. B, seller must give the buyer an opportunity to make a new offer. C, the buyer must perform under the terms of the contract. Or D, the seller must notify the buyer in writing that the buyer is in default. So remember, everybody has to be notified, informed before one of the seller or the buyer makes a change. So in this case, the buyer, however, before the salesperson can inform the buyer of the seller's decision, the buyer delivers a written notice that she opted out and canceling the agreement. So the buyer didn't know that of the seller. And so now the contract is A. The contract has been legitimately canceled and is null and void, which is 524A. So let's see what the book says. To be valid, a contract must meet the criteria of competent parties, voluntarily act of good faith, mutual consent, legal purpose, and valuable consideration. The buyer broke the mutual consent requirement by opting out before being told of the seller's acceptance. There is no valid contract. The seller maybe took a little bit too long to let their agent, and then that agent informed the buyer agent. Number 25. I need to adjust my monitor a little bit. Okay, there we go. I have 3 monitors in front of me. So if you see me looking different sides, it's because I have 3 monitors. Okay, let's see a comment here by Max. On mutual consideration, mutual consideration to terminate the agreement. No. So both didn't have to agree. It just happened that the buyer didn't get notification from the seller's agent before the buyer decided to back out and terminate the agreement. So the buyer told her buyer agent, I want out. And that buyer agent informed the seller agent before the seller agent informed the buyer agent of the seller's response. So it was not a mutual consideration to terminate. It terminated by default because of the buyer making a notice to back out before being informed of the seller's either counter, acceptance, or rejection, or no communication at all. Sometimes sellers don't communicate back at all. But we as agents, we recommend that there's some type of communication, okay? Either accept, reject, counter, and there's good communication, and inform in the proper time. In some places, the contract will say you have 24 hours to respond. Other states don't. In Texas, we don't have a time limit. Time is of the essence, but it's as soon as possible. Number 25. Which of the following is an essential element of a valid contract for the sale of real estate? A valid blank form that the contract is written on. B, a habitable property. C, an offer and acceptance. D, a marketable title. North Dakota, I think 24 hours. Okay. Yeah, Oregon used to have 24 hours. I don't know what it is now because I'm not doing it there anymore. Okay, on number 25, 525, the answer is C, an offer and acceptance. So anybody that just came in, we're doing brokerage business and sale contracts, which is national, not for a particular state. It's general for all states. Number 26. What kind of interest does the buyer acquire once a real estate sale contract is signed by the principal parties? And who are the principal parties? The seller and the buyer, correct? A legal title. B, lien holder interest. C, reversionary interest. Or D, equitable title. So what kind of interest does the buyer acquire once a real estate sale contract is signed by the principal party? So both parties have to sign. So this has not closed yet. So this is not an executed contract. So the answer here is 526D, an equitable title. An equitable title. Lien holder interest, that would be the lender, right? But they're not at that. Reversionary interest means if the owner default or whoever owned it default, it reverts back to the original owner. So it's either legal title or equitable title. So a sale contract, per the book, gives the buyer an interest in the property that is called equitable title. Vocabulary there, okay? Or ownership and equity. So they have equity in that because they have a signed contract. If the seller defaults and the buyer can show good faith performance, the buyer can sue for specific performance because both parties have to perform. So there's specific performance of each party, being the seller and the buyer. That is to compel the seller to transfer legal title upon payment of the contract price. So in the meantime that it's going through the closing process, it's an executed contract. So it's in title, so it's executable, executory. It's going through the closing process. So once it closes, then transfer legal title to the new owner, the buyer. So that was 526D. Now number 527. So for those of you that have been visiting my channel or watching my videos, I've been editing the most recent videos and adjusting the screen. All right, number 27. A contingency is a sales contract. In a sales contract, is a promise by buyer or seller to perform on a specific action. B, a condition that, if unmet, renders the contract unenforceable. And C, one of several alternative actions that buyer or seller may take to satisfy contract requirements. Or D, an optional unilateral, right, one direction, unilateral action that either party may take at the request of the other party. So what is a contingency in a sales contract? So you can see there's a lot of definitions in all of these questions, and that's why I highly recommend that you learn the vocabulary. And when you're doing these questions and you don't know something, go back to the vocabulary or Google it. All right, number 527. The answer is B. Oh, I put 557. Yes, very good, Max. B as in boy. A condition that, if unmet, renders the contract unenforceable. So a contingency is a condition that must be met before the contract is enforceable. If one party cannot meet a contingency condition of a specified by a specified deadline, the other party may cancel the contract. So let's say the buyer needs to sell their other home before purchasing this one. And if they can't sell their other home, then the contingency is not met and they have to terminate the contract. They will probably lose their earnest money and an option fee. I'm not sure in your particular state, an option fee is a fee that a buyer pays to the seller that is non-refundable to provide them with time to do their due diligence, inspections, home inspection, roof inspection, electrical, plumbing, sewer, well, depending if you're out in the outskirts in the country. So, one contingency is that the purchase of the property is subject to the sale of another one, or it's contingent on the lender approving them. That is already a typical contingency that's in the contract. Okay. Or they may have a contingency that I will come and see the property before I finalize the purchase. They might be out of the country, out of the state, and such. All right, number 28. Let me see if I can make that a little larger. Number 28, a clause in a sale contract stipulates that the seller must provide evidence that the property is free of active termite infestation. On the day of closing, the buyer learns that the inspection service did not provide the required written documentation. The buyer then proceeds to declare that the sale is off. Which of the following is true of this situation? A, the seller can sue for specific performance. B, the buyer will be in default and liable for damages if he or she does not complete the transaction. C, the buyer may be able to have the contract canceled. Or D, the contract is automatically void. So a clause in sale contract stipulates that the seller must provide evidence that the property is free of active infestation. So this is a responsibility of the seller to provide that information. On closing day, the buyer learns that inspection service did not provide the written documentation. So the buyer then proceeds to declare the sale is off. So which one is true? So this is one of the instances where a buyer has the option to terminate because the seller didn't meet all their specific performance. And termite is a major issue in some states where there's a lot of moisture and humidity. So the answer 528 is C as in Charlie. The buyer may be able to have the contract canceled. So it's up to the buyer. You said the contract. No, a contract is not automatically void. Okay, the seller did not perform, so the buyer can cancel. The buyer can decide to give the seller more time to provide the information because they still want the home. And that's between the seller and the buyer. But if the buyer wants to terminate it, they can, because the seller didn't meet all the conditions that the sale contract stipulates, right? Up here. Therefore, the buyer can get their earnest money back. But in order for the buyer to get the earnest money back, there is a release of earnest money that has to be signed by both parties. Says you figure it was C or D. Yes. Well, no, not. It was C or, yeah. Yeah, I guess C or D, right? But no, the contract is not automatically void in this case. So let's see here. The termite inspection clause is a contingency clause, okay? Contingency that we just read in the prior question. If one party cannot meet a contingency condition by a specified deadline, the other party may cancel the contract. So the word is may. They don't have to, but they may. Did the clause state that the inspection had to be properly licensed? If so, the buyer has a good case for cancellation. The fact that the seller did not deliver, the buyer has the right to cancel per the contract stipulations. Oops, something's going on. Oh, there we go. Number 29. Did I show the answer? 528C. 29. A buyer signs an earnest money agreement and gives it to the broker who showed her the property she or he is buying. After leaving the broker's office, she reconsiders and decides she prefers a different property offer. B, until the earnest money deposit is cash. C, she can take it back at any time, but must forfeit the earnest money, or she can take it back until after the expiration date of the offer. Okay, so this is similar to a question that we just covered, right? That the buyer didn't get notified, the seller didn't get notified that the buyer had backed out prior to their decision, right? So how long does she have to take back her offer? The answer here is A, until the seller communicates acceptance of the offer. As long as the buyer hasn't heard of that, she can cancel it in writing and it's delivered to the seller. And she'll get her earnest money back. If she deposited some, if she delivered some earnest money, here or she, and here they're saying it's a she. So 529A, any offer may revoke an offer for any reason prior to communication of acceptance by the offeree. So the offeree in this case is the seller, right? Very good. Number 30, moving right along. On Wednesday, Fred offers to sell his property to Jack for $275,000, with the offer to remain open until 6 p.m. the next day. So there's a deadline, right? 6 p.m. till the next day. On Thursday morning, Sally offers Fred $280,000 for the property, and Fred accepts. At 1 p.m. on Thursday afternoon, Jack accepts. Which of the following is true? Okay, so Wednesday, Fred offers to sell his property to Jack for $275,000. So Fred is seller, Jack is buyer. With the offer to remain open. So the seller wants the offer to remain open until 5 p.m. the next day, which would be Thursday. On Thursday morning, Sally offers Fred $280,000 for the property, and Fred accepts it. So Fred accepts the offer for $280,000 before the 5 p.m. Next day deadline, which it was already the next day, right? Thursday. He accepts it. At 1 p.m. on Thursday afternoon, Jack accepts. Which of the following is true of this situation? So Jack accepted later than Fred accepted an offer. So the answer here, what do you think is? So the acceptance by Sally creates a contract and terminates Fred's offer to Jack. B, Fred has entered into contracts with both Jack and Sally to sell the same property. C, Fred's acceptance of Sally's offer is invalidated by Jack's acceptance because Fred's offer to Jack was made prior to Sally's offer to Fred. Yeah, but there was a 5 p.m. limit till the next day, right? To hold off on the offer. And then D, no contract has been created because it is impossible to have two valid sale contracts for this. Well, they haven't both, Fred entered into two contracts. So the answer here is 530B. I was reading the answer before telling you what it was. Okay, so 530B. Fred has entered into contracts with both Jack and Sally to sell the same property. That is what is true in this situation because Fred offers to buy Jack's property. Okay, so Jack to sell is the seller. No, I'm sorry. Fred is the seller, right? Offers to sell this to Jack with the offer to remain open. It doesn't say that it was in writing. It's just that it was verbally offered and remained till Thursday, 5 p.m. On Thursday, Sally offers Fred $280 for property, and Fred accepts. So Fred has entered into contracts with both Jack and Sally to sell the same property. However, since one of them was open till the following day, he accepted a new one earlier than the cancellation time. So he had entered into one. So if they were verbal contracts, and then finally one got put into writing, then the one that's in writing that he verbally accepted by the deadline, then because Jack accepted later than Sally and Fred's situation. So it can get a little confusing. You've got to follow, are they in writing? So let's see here. The answer says Jack's acceptance of Fred's offer creates a valid contract, just as Fred's acceptance of Sally's offer creates a valid contract. Fred should have revoked his offer to Jack before accepting Sally's offer. It doesn't say that they were in writing, correct? However, the best thing to do is for Fred to inform Jack that he accepted Sally's offer, correct? Because it doesn't say anywhere on here that it was a written contract. So that's another issue. So the answer says he accepted two offers, so he should have revoked his offer to Jack before accepting Sally's offer. But he left the offer situation open till 5 p.m. in order to be able to get other offers. So he was seeking multiple offers, right? But if not in writing, it can't be enforceable in court, right? Great. Number 31. Among the items that normally must be disclosed in a sale contract or its addenda is or are the A, buyer's financial capability, B, buyer's source of funds for the down payment, C, seller's acceptable price range, or D, agency relations and property conditions. Among the items that normally must be disclosed in a sales contract or its addendum, because some contracts have several addendums, right? They're not amendments, they're addendum. They're added to the contract. Is A, buyer's financial capability, B, buyer's source of funds for the down payment, C, seller's acceptable price range, or D, agency relationship and property conditions. So must be disclosed in a sale contract. Even though sometimes there may be multiple answers that are correct, It's which one is the best and must. Keyword that normally must be disclosed. Yes, the answer, Max, is D, 530D, agency relationships and property condition. So are there two agents involved and each one has an agency relationship with their client? And what is the property condition, which would be delivered in a property condition form, right? Seller's disclosure addendum, which is provided by the seller on the condition of the property. And they have to be honest, because if they're not, it can bite them and come back and cost them some fines. So in Texas, it's 5 pages long of a whole bunch of little boxes that they have to check and disclose about the condition of the property, which is important to the buyer. Some investors may not care. They're buying the home in the condition that it is. They know it needs repairs and such. When it's a good home, and need to know as much as possible for the buyer before making a decision to purchase. So disclose, disclose, disclose property conditions, and anything that the realtor also learns on the condition of the property, informed by the seller or not. Let's see, if we see it visibly, then we need to let the seller know, hey, this was not mentioned on the seller's disclosures, because we do not help the sellers complete the seller's disclosure. That's a form for them to complete, and predominantly they're completed online now, but some individuals still complete them on hard copy. We cannot help with those. Oh, I wrote 530D twice. I'm sorry. Let me delete that comment and put 531. So it was 531D. I'm glad I caught that. 531D. All right, number 32. To create an enforceable option to buy contract. What is that? Option to buy contract. There must be an exchange of A, promise to sell and a promise to buy. B, valuable consideration and a right to buy. C, valuable consideration and a promise to buy. Or D, a down payment and a post-dated contract sale date. Which do you believe is the, or no, is the correct answer here? This is to create an enforceable option to buy contract. So there's an option to buy the contract at a later date. There must be an exchange of a promise to sell and buy, valuable consideration and a promise to buy. The second one, B, right to buy, because B and C are quite similar, with the except that B says right to buy, C has promise to buy. D, a down payment and a post-dated contract sale date. The answer for 532 is B, a valuable consideration and the right to buy, right? The consideration can be, doesn't have to be money, right? It can be money, an exchange, an equal exchange, or some other thing exchange. It can be a promissory note. So some individuals say, hey, I'm going to trade my motorcycle or my RV or, any toy they have for purchasing this property to make it an enforceable option to buy contract. And so on an option to buy contract, kind of like a lease option to buy, some states accept that, some states don't. Here in Texas, we can only have lease option to buy for 6 months. So don't practice them here, but in other states, it can be a lease option to buy. So they lease it today with the option to buy a year, 2 years later, and their monthly payment, part of it may go towards their down payment when they finally opt to purchase it at a later date. Should they not exercise the option to buy at the later date that was agreed upon by both parties, that buyer, lessee, potential buyer, will lose everything they've invested. So the answer was 532B, valuable consideration and a right to buy. Because on an option to buy, they don't make a down payment. They pay an option fee. And to be enforceable, it's not a promise to sell and a promise to buy. It's a written agreement, right? Hmm. Okay, let's see. See if this will work. 533B. Gee, I'm struggling with this one more than usual. Oh, I'll remove these when I edit the video, and the replay won't have this, all these adjustments that I normally do. So just bear with me right now. I can't seem to find the right setting for, there we go. 533. Mary Carboy buys a house from Jim Schmidt and at the same time obtains an option to purchase the adjoining vacant lot for $10,000 within 1 year. A few months later, Carboy informs Schmidt that she is ready to exercise her option, but finds that Schmidt has received an offer of $12,000 from another party. Schmidt states that he will accept the offer unless Carboy is willing to match the $12,000 offer. Which of the following is true of this situation? All right, so Mary buys a house from Schmidt and at the same time obtains an option to purchase the adjoining vacant lot. So they have two agreements, right? One purchased now and one within a year to exercise that option. So can Schmidt accept another offer or not? So the choices for A, Schmidt must sell to Carboy for $10,000. B, Carboy must pay $12,000 or lose the property. C, Schmidt may sell to Carboy or the other party, but the price cannot exceed $10,000. Or D, if the other party delivers payment before Carboy does, the option is canceled. So there are written agreements, right? So Schmidt has to stick with the first agreement, which has an option to purchase within a year for $10,000. The answer here is A. Schmidt must sell to Carboy for $10,000. The only way that he could sell it to the other buyer for $12,000 if Mary Carboy canceled her, did not exercise her option. So how's everybody doing? Anyone taking the exam before Saturday? 3. There. Which of the following is true regarding the assignability of an option? A, it is assignable only if the contract specifically allows assignment. B, it is never assignable. C, it is assignable only if the option is exercised. Or D, it is always assignable unless the contract prohibits assignment. Which of the following is true regarding assignability of an option? So it's almost like assigning a lease to somebody else, but in a lease, that person, the original person, is responsible. But how about in this case? The answer is 534D. D as in dog. It is always assignable unless the contract prohibits assignment. So the difference between that one and A says it is assignable only if the contract specifically allows assignment. D says it's always assignable unless the contracts prohibit assignment. Very close. Okay, one states it in the agreement in the contract, the other one doesn't. So a real estate contract that is not a personal service contract can be assigned to another party unless the terms of the agreement specifically prohibit assignment. An option to buy is therefore assignable in the absence of such a prohibiting clause. I'm so glad I do these because it refreshes my memory when we don't do these types of transactions. You know, sometimes we have to go and we're getting there. Right. Now, oops. Not quite. Here by Max. That's the one I put on the test A, which was wrong. Oh, wow. You specifically remember. Not everybody remembers. So that's a good thing that you remember those. All right. Very good. And thank you for sharing, Max, and participating. 535. Which of the following is true of a contract for deed transaction? Another vocabulary. At the end of the contract period, the vendee receives equitable title, provided all required periodic payments have been made. B, the vendee, remember vendor, vendee, EE, and OR, receiver and giver. The vendee has no right to possess or occupy the property during the contract period. C, at the end of the contract period, the vendor conveys legal title, provided the vendee has fulfilled all obligations. Or D, may cancel the contract at any time before the final payment has been received. So what is a contract for deed? Which is the correct answer in this case? The answer here is 535C. At the end of the contract period, the vendor, which is the seller, the owner, that's sold it. Very good, Max. Conveys legal title, provided the vendee has fulfilled all obligations. Because the vendee is the one that bought it on a contract for deed, and a contract for deed, a lot of times the seller keeps the legal title, okay, and the deed. So once all payments are made, then the vendor conveys legal title, making sure that all obligations have been met, and provide any release of lien. Because lenders provide a release when a loan is finally paid for, right? And so now the owner has the legal title. So they provide the legal title, and now the deed now has where the vendor's lien has been removed because the lender did a release of liens. And in this case, the borrower on a contract for deed doesn't have a deed, so that change doesn't have to be made. So it may not require a release of liens, but it should require proof that all payments were made. And the transfer of conveyance of the legal title. And get it recorded. Buyer's new owner needs to make sure that it is recorded. All right, number 36. Several buyers are competing for the last available home in a desirable new subdivision. One buyer calls the owner developer directly on the phone and offers $20,000 over and above. A, the parties have a valid and enforceable sales contract on the home. B, the parties have completed a verbal executory contract. C, the parties may not cancel their contract. Or D, the developer could not enter. Buyers are competing for the last available home in the desirable new subdivision. So they're making offers, right? And then the developer accepts that offer. If parties have a valid enforceable executory contract, the developer could not entertain other in writing, right? So what is the answer here? Make sure I type the right answer. 6B. The parties have completed a verbal executory contract. So it's verbal and they've executed, and now, I mean, they verbally execute it, but not in writing, and it's ready to go to closing. So next thing they'll do is put it in writing and proceed with closing. Wow, that feels good. Cold drink, moisten the throat. All right, number 37. An owner completes a sale contract on her property with a buyer. Before closing, the seller runs into financial creditor. Who's the principal creditor? The buyer cries foul, fearing there's a little bit of internet issues here on my end. A, allow the illegal assignment. B, the buyer can take legal acts, completed a legal action. D, the sale contract is nullified. Remember, assignor, assignee. So owner completes a sales contract on the property with a buyer before closing. So, I mean, they run into financial problems, probably with the lender, and assign it to the lender. They're assigning the contract. I'm sorry, not the doesn't necessarily have to be a lender, a banker, someone that they got money for purchasing that property. So what do you think the answer here for 537 is? The answer is 537 B as in boy. I'm sorry. Nope. Delete comment. Wrong answer. It's 537C. The assigner has completed a legal action. And my answer may not show because of internet issue. Will be logged. So either party of a sale to a sale transaction can assign the sale contract to another party, subject to the provisions and conditions contained in the agreement. Okay, did the answer show up on YouTube? Yes. All right, very good. So did y'all get that? So the buyer doesn't sue because it's still going to go through the closing. It's just been assigned to someone else, one of the creditors. Oh my gosh, what the heck did I do here? Sorry, I don't know what the heck I did. Okay, I need to get out of this and get back on course. There we go. I clicked the wrong button. All right, number 38, moving right along. Number 38, a due on sale clause in a sale contract puts parties on notice that A, the full price of the property is due to the seller at closing. B, any loan surviving closing become immediately payable. C, all of the seller's debts must be retired before or upon closing. D, any conveyances may trigger an acceleration of any loan secured by the property. A due on sale clause in a sale contract put parties on notice that, if you're not sure what due on sale clause is, time to go back to the vocabulary. It's a due on sale clause that's on the deed of trust. When a lender loans money to a borrower, and if they happen to convey the title, then the lender may call the loan due immediately because of the due on sale clause. It says they may, doesn't mean they will. Sometimes they want to keep getting their payments. So the answer here is D. Any conveyance may trigger an acceleration of any loan secured by the property. Right? The lender wants to know. However, there are ways that are done by investors to take over someone's loan, or it's conveyed into a living trust or a land trust, and it doesn't impact the lender goal. But you're going to hear most people say, oh no, that's illegal. You can't convey a property without getting approval from the lender. That's not accurate. And I know a personal experience. So 538, any conveyance, due on sale clause, sales contract put parties on notice that any conveyance may trigger an acceleration of any loan secured by the property. Right? Because when there is a loan on the warranty deed, there will be a vendor's lien on there. And on the deed of trust, which only in non-judicial foreclosures is there a deed of clause, a deed of trust, which describes the process of what happens if someone were to default or if the lender decides to sell. And it mentions the due on sale clause if the owner conveys the property to someone else. In other states, there's about forget if it's 60-40 or 50-50. Some states have a judicial foreclosure, meaning in order to foreclose on a property, they've got to go through the court and get a judgment, a court order in order to foreclose. Not when it's a non-judicial and there is a deed of trust. The deed of trust describes the process and what can be done, and the trust then follows course. Number 39, a tenant has an option to purchase agreement with the landlord that expires on June 30th. An option to purchase can also be called the lease option to buy. Some people call it rent to own, okay, like you rent to own furniture, appliances. Here it's a tenant has an option to purchase agreement with the landlord that expires June 30th. On July 1st, the tenant frantically calls the landlord to exercise the option, offering the apology that she was busy with a death in the family. Which of the following is true? A, since options contain grace period, the landlord must sell. B, the tenant loses the right to buy, but can claim the money paid for the option from the landlord. C, the landlord does not have to sell, but must renew the option. Or D, the option is expired and the tenant has no rightful claim to money paid for the option. I did mention something about this a little bit earlier in an earlier question about what would happen if somebody did not exercise the option or the option period expired. I didn't mention that, but if they didn't exercise the option by the deadline, that 539D would happen. The option is expired and the tenant has no rightful claim to money paid for the option. And if any money was being paid to go towards the down payment, that is sacrificed also. That is forfeited. Number 40. Two parties enter into a contract for deed, again, deed kind of like a owner financing, however the seller keeps the deed, into a contract for deed agreement. In this form of agreement, A, title is conveyed to the buyer, but the seller retains possession to a stipulated time period, for a stipulated time period. B, the buyer contracts to pay cash at closing in exchange for the deed. C, the seller retains legal title while the buyer makes partial payments until the contract is fully executed. And D, the buyer immediately acquires legal title and takes possession. So this is similar to a prior question. And this is why sometimes I say, if you don't know an answer to a question, click it for review later. A future question might trigger you to say, okay, yep, this is the right answer. Therefore, I can go back to the other one and answer that one, and you'll get both correct. Now, if you choose the wrong answer for both of them, then you get both wrong. Okay, 540, the answer is C, as in Charlie. The seller retains legal title while the buyer makes partial payments until the contract is fully executed. Contract is fully executed when they continue to have payments until they end up making all payments and have a zero balance, right? And then the owner, the seller, conveys the legal title to the borrower. And again, the borrower should go to court and make sure that the deed was recorded. Or the seller might say, hey, you go record the deed. Here's the deed that I'm conveying to you, go record it. If it's not recorded, somebody else could take over that property and sell it. Great, number 41. Let's see. No. '41. The federal law that produced the Do Not Call list and related protection is Solicitation Regulation Act. C, Telemarketing Prohibition Act. C, CAN-SPAN Act. Or D, Telephone Consumers Protection Act. So what is the answer for 541? The answer is D, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, TCPA. Number 42. Oops, hold on. We have a comment here. Let me show the answer for 541. And so let's go back here. Let's see what MJ, who is Max. He says, to make a contract legal, do they need both signatures? Meaning, do the both parties have to sign to be executed, or just the grantee? No, both parties have to sign on a contract. Okay, what was that? On a contract for deed. So there's a contract, okay, to buy. It's just the deed will not get conveyed. Both parties have to sign. The deed, when the borrower pays it off, the deed is only signed by the grantor, the owner, the seller. Okay, because your to make a contract legal. No, to make a contract legal, both parties have to sign. Yes, that is correct. Meaning the two parties have to sign to be executed, or just a grantee. No, both parties. It's like a regular contract, but it'll specify that in that the seller is doing like an owner finance. They are just not conveying the title. Oh, on the exam, you put the Can-Spam Act. Yeah, sometimes when we're not sure, we put something that might, oh, okay. They can, so you got that one wrong. And then you answered my question. So the grantor, oh, okay. So the grantor signs the deed, but both parties have to sign the contract. We're on what? 542. New federal regulation in advertising requires email advertisers to give recipients an option to discontinue receiving emails from such advertisers. The legislation is called, it's like, you can unsubscribe some channels, some emails make it difficult to unsubscribe. They're like, go to the website, do this, or they don't offer the unsubscribe. So the legislation is called A, the Can-Spam Act, B, the Truth in Advertising Act, C, the Telephone Consumer Protection Act, or D, the Email Prohibition Act of EAPA. Number 42. Yes, Max, that is correct. The Can-Spam Act. The answer is 542A. So the Can-Spam Act bans unwanted commercial messages sent to wireless devices, requires prior authorization to transmit certain messages, and requires an opt-out provision where the receiver can shut off the advertiser from sending future messages. So, here they say email advertisers to give recipient the option to discontinue. And on the answer for Can-Spam Act, it talks about wireless devices being like a cell phone, right? However, emails, you need an internet connection. So it's going through the cloud, the internet, right? The Wi-Fi, or your service provider that provides internet. You got these two questions mixed up, 5.4, 41 and 42. Yes, it's easy to do, but you know what? You are acknowledging that that's what happened. That means you've learned the difference, and you're going to do a heck of a lot better on the exam on Saturday. You've learned, and your continued studying that you do every day. You said you study from 6 to 8 every day. That's helping you, making sure that you selected the wrong one, and now you're going to select the correct one on Saturday. Number 43. Which of the following is not a trust fund violation? A, using operating funds to reimburse a tenant's lease deposit if spent by the broker. B, keeping enough operating funds in a trust account to cover bank fees. C, depositing trust funds in an operating account. Or D, let me move my my picture up. Returning trust funds to a buyer if approved by all parties. So which is not a trust fund violation. This information that I'm covering right now, Marjorie, is for national. So it's for every state. This is not state specific. This covers the national portion. Some states combine the national and the state. And in Texas, we have national and Texas. And many other states, there's also the national portion and the state portion that are separate. When they combine it, the national questions are the same throughout the US, throughout all 50 states. So this today is covering national questions that will apply to you in California for your exam. It doesn't cover your state specific question. That you need to go to your prep book that covers California, contracts and promulgated contracts and rights, anything like that. You're very welcome. When it comes to states, I cover Texas because I'm licensed in Texas. I mean, I could cover others, like some channels, they cover all states, but they just probably get books, create them, or they're a publisher that creates questions for all states. I don't. I end up using a book here that's approved by the Metling author that has books for, 38 or 40 different states. So the national portion is the same. Okay, so here, do you know anyone who covers California in specific? I think Prep Agent might do that. However, they don't do it live, and there's other YouTube channels that do cover all 50 states, but I'm not sure if they have combined questions, national and Texas, national and state, but there are some YouTube channels that have videos, questions for all 50 states. So I would go on YouTube and then search for California state questions or California state prep. And Prep Agent, which Joe Juder, he might have them. I know he has a school and tutors and that type of thing, and other YouTube channels cover all 50 states. You're very welcome. Okay, another question here. Contracts, agency, relationship, and real estate math. Once I get more questions correct, I will pass. Awesome. Yeah, so real estate math, we did a series of 4 different videos, and I have a playlist that says 2026 math series. For contracts, there is a contract portion for national, and like we are here doing this, today we're doing brokerage business and sale contracts for national. Okay, and then there's contracts for your particular state and the agency relationship for your particular state, but there are also national. Right, where were we? Number 44. Thank you for your questions and your comments and for participating. In the village of Bobcat Heights, a group of brokers in the MLS mutually agreed to not show broker nuisance listings. This would be considered a violation of A, fair trade practices, B, redlining, C, housing discrimination, or D, sandbagging. So a group of brokers agree not to show a particular agent's listings. This would be considered a violation of the answer here is A, fair trade practice. Because we're not supposed to show only what we want. It's what our client wants to see. So that is fair trade practices. The housing discrimination is a realtor not showing a buyer properties of, the housing violations, right? The protective classes. What was the answer for 43? Okay, I'll show it to you. Oh, I didn't type it. 543 was B as in boy. Sorry. I got sidetracked. And so which of the following is not a trust? Keeping enough operating funds in a trust account to cover bank fees. And where are the operating funds? In a trust account. So which is not a violation of a trust fund, which is not a trust fund violation. Keeping enough operating funds in a trust account to cover bank fees. So like in a property management, they might have a trust fund for particular property that they're managing, or conglomerate of properties, or one of their clients. And the client may say, hey, I would like for you to be paying, fees and that type of thing. So there has to be enough operating funds for that in their trust account, which is not personal business operating funds. It's for that particular management. You got it correct. Awesome. Yes, sorry, I got sidetracked here. I don't know what happened. Oh, I got to answer questions and got sidetracked and read the question, but didn't give you the answers, didn't read the answers or give you. So A says using operating funds to reimburse a tenant's lease deposit if spent by the broker. B, keeping enough operating funds in a trust account to cover bank fees. C, depositing trust funds in an operating account. Or D, returning trust funds to a buyer if approved by all parties. So the answer is keeping enough operating funds in a trust account to cover bank fees. Brokers may maintain an amount of operating funds in the trust account in order to pay monthly banking fees. So let's say maybe there was an overdrawn on the trust account where they keep clients' money. So they may put additional funds in there to cover any types of fees on that account, because they are responsible for that checking or trust account. Correct? All right. Sorry for the confusion here. And I'll type. So the 544, the answer was A, which I had already typed, but I'm doing it again. The activity is called group boycotting. So they're boycotting someone, right? Nguyen in this case. And it's a violation of fair trade laws. It is an illegal activity for a number of competitors in a given market to gang up on a competitor in that market so as to limit the boycotted party's access to customers and patrons. Okay, so that is the last of the brokerage business and sale contracts. So I did 2 sessions, one on Thursday, first 22 questions, and here we did another 22 questions for test number 5, brokerage business and sale contracts. So if there are too many questions and we do at least an hour or more, then I divide it into 2 sessions now. And I'm labeling the video title with the topic that we're discussing and putting it in the description. And I'm also pinning a comment to let those who don't open the description and see everything, they can see the comments of what was covered on that video. So tomorrow we will start with economics and appraisal. And again, this is national practice tests, applies to all 50 states. The first few sections test we've already done: rights, interests, estates, encumbrances, liens and transfers, land use, legal descriptions, agency listing agreements. There's 2 videos on that, and brokerage business sale, 2 videos on that. So you can refer to the links within the description of the video that is labeled 2026 National Real Estate Questions, and the videos will be in there. I think I've got them all correct in there. Some of them are combined. Some of the topics I was combining with Texas. Oh, some of the national I was combining with Texas, but I ran out with Texas questions, and I will start doing the Texas questions at a later date for those that need to review more Texas questions. Right now, I'm going through all the national, but because it impacts anyone throughout the United States, all 50 states. So it helps anyone who's taking their exam in the 50 states of the USA for the national portion. If your exam is combined, the national and the state, you're still dealing with the same national information. So, hey, y'all, thank you so much for attending tonight. I'm so grateful that you were here, and I'm pleased to see that you're studying and preparing for your exam. And if this is your first time to my channel, I would greatly appreciate your support by subscribing to my channel. And if you like the information that I'm providing, tapping the thumbs up. If not, don't say anything bad. It's not useful. Doesn't help anybody, right? We're here to help each other. And you may click the alerts button, the bell, so that you get alerted anytime I go live. And so I'm going live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 6 to 7 or 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Make sure you get the right time on your area of the country. Don't cancel on us tomorrow. Lots of laughs. Yeah, I know. Sometimes when I have clients, I did cancel, but I will not. Okay. I'll see you here tomorrow. I'm very grateful. And I hope that my lives or videos are helping you. And the, what do you call it? The chat replay shows up about 24 hours. Sometimes it shows up sooner than that after the video ends. And then when you're rewatching the video, you can play it at a higher speed and pass through whatever you don't want to listen to. And I do that a lot. If it's good articulation by the speaker or the announcer or the presenter, and you can still understand it at 1.5 speed or 2 point speed, I watch a lot of them like that I want to watch the whole video, because I do watch other people's videos. So as always, I greatly appreciate you. I also am an active realtor here in San Antonio, Texas. I'm licensed in Texas, and I've been doing this since 2020 on YouTube, but I did take like almost 2 years off to focus 100% on real estate, but I miss doing this. I enjoy it, and I am adding more resources to the channel. So you're going to see a little bit of changes to the banner, the topics, the playlist, because I'll be adding videos for beginners that get into real estate or existing realtors, for buyers and sellers, to help them buy and help them sell and get the most out of their purchase or sale, and information about YouTube, since I've learned a lot doing this. So again, thank you so much. Have a great evening, and catch you next time. Could be tomorrow, could be next week. See y'all later. Bye.